Great. And I have this chapter one set up on my end, but if you go in as a student to your course page, see here, and you go into content, there's a section here that says PowerPoints from Publisher, and we'll have chapters 1 to 12 here. These are a little bland sometimes, so I'll go ahead and kind of go through them together. I won't just read off the slides. I'm going to do a bit more of interactive creation with it, but we're really going to kind of delve deep into some concepts. So again, if you go to your course dashboard, content, PowerPoints from Publisher, each of these will match up with a certain week that we're working on. So we're on chapter 1 right now. And what I'll do here, if we get started here, is we're going to be introduced to this concept of web programming. So some of these links might be a bit older. Again, with computers, they're always advancing, and so is code and everything with them. But in general, HTML has been pretty, let me enable that, pretty much the same as we're going through it. So let me, current slide, great. I'm going to leave this, I'm going to be jumping between slides, like actual coding. So let me make it around this size, and then we can read through them together. So for today, we're going to be covering a few concepts ranging from the creation of a website, how web pages work, and then what I really want to focus on are these tags and some structural elements that we're going to be looking at. And you might have heard some of these before, you might not have. But in general, whenever you're making a website, there's going to be two main things that you're going to need. You're going to need a text editor, which is going to go ahead and either be Notepad or Dreamweaver. Visual Studio might have a few. As a show of hands, I'm on Windows right now. How many of us are on Mac or Apple? Or is everyone... Okay, so Isabel, you're on Apple. Okay. Is anyone else on Apple?
I'm on Windows, so.
You're on Windows? Okay. So my examples will be on Windows, but if we're encountering issues, I have a Mac here that we could use as well. So just let me know if you're having issues with it. There should be a free Mac tool that's a Notepad, similar to Windows. And we'll have this publishing tool. We don't need this for right now, but essentially a way to view the code that we make in a text editor online, which is like a browser essentially. That's hidden there. So if we go ahead and we actually take a look at a website right away, let me go ahead and actually pull up our learning course here. This example shows us kind of this web page that we're looking at, and then we'll see that this web page is made up of some elements. P and div are these elements, and H1 and HR, and then we'll have this web page as well. And to get started here, to look at these tags, we're going to be trying to look at a few of this markup language. So to actually go ahead and get familiar with some of these tags, what I'm going to do is I created a folder. You can either do this on your Windows desktop, or if you're on Mac, you can make a folder as well. It doesn't matter where you make this. But what I'm going to do on Windows is I'm going to right click and I'm going to go down to New. And if you're on Windows, you should have something that says Text Document. If you've already done a bit of coding before, you can either use Open with Code or Open with Visual Code. I'm going to do the basic text document. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to call this practice. So this is a text document called practice that I'm making. Now, if I open up this text document, we'll notice that it's blank. And the other thing is that usually we've been saying this term HTML a lot. TXT file isn't a HTML file. So what I'm going to do next is after I open up this blank text document, I'm going to go to File and Save As. What I'm going to do inside of my Save As here is I'm going to drop down the Save As type, and I'm going to change it from this .txt to all files. And in my file name directory here, instead of saving it as practice, I'm going to save it as a .html. So this should be the exact same for Mac. You might just have a different wording of everything. But essentially, you create a blank text document, and now I'm converting it into a HTML file. You only really need to do this once because you can just copy it after that, and it won't be as tough. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit save after I do this. Nice. Now you might have already seen, let me make this a bit bigger for us to look at. Make them large icons. Is that too large? There we go. We'll see here that my practice file is here, but folks might also notice that I have this kind of Google Chrome symbol and I have the word practice under it. Has everyone been able to do this? Is anyone stuck with this part? Good. If you could just do a thumbs up in the chat or something if you're good.
Yeah,
Good.
on my way of the procedures.
Oh, sure. No worries. See here.
Just need some cooperation from my tools.
From yeah, those are working. Cool. So now what I'm going to do actually is instead of opening up a Google, I think I have Edge. It doesn't matter which one you use to open these with, really. It's personal preference. Some of this might be on Mozilla. I'm going to use Microsoft Edge to dedicate to it. And congratulations, everyone. You technically made a web page already, although it's not that intensive, right? It's just a blank one. But essentially, this is what I'll be doing here. So for your projects and other work, you don't need to do this part all the time. What I would say is you can do a right click on your practice.html and you can go to copy and you could just paste it. And then you can rename this anything you'd like. That's easier than having to redo the text file. But essentially what we're going to do next, you don't need to delete it. I will for visual purposes. What I'm going to do next is if I right click on my HTML file, I can go to open with, and then I can open it with my TXT editor. So in my issue right here is I don't have a notepad popping up when I went to open with. So if I go to choose another app, I could try to look for an app that says notepad. It should be the same for Mac. Again, if you want to use a more advanced editor, that's fine. I could show us how to install one too. I'm just going to use Notepad. So now I'm always going to use Notepad here. And now we'll see here that I have this blank screen that I can work with. So if you're able to make this HTML file work, that's great. That's the first step. And what I'm going to do next here is take a look at the general idea of the layout of code here. So there's a ton of stuff here that is happening to us right away. But what I want to show us here is that HTML is made up of tags and attributes. And there's only so many tags in HTML that you'll need to remember. The first one that we can make is called a heading tag. And can I make this a bit bigger for us to work with? Cool. So the way that you'll make a tag in HTML is that you first do an open bracket like this. So it looks like the less than symbol. And then you provide it with an opening tag. So this opening tag right here is called a header. And then you're going to provide a piece of text in between it. So I'm going to call my text hello world. After I open up my open tag, the thing that you'll need to do next is close your tag. Like so. So now we'll see that I have a hello world with a closing tag. Now I'm going to keep this open here on the side. And if I actually open up my practice text again, does everyone see how I now have a hello world inside of my file here? See here. The screen's a bit small. Cool. Okay, so I got that working there. Has everyone been able to get to this point with making their first tag? Good.
Why is it like always? Do I always need to use those brackets?
Yes, Sullivan, perfect. So whenever you're making tags in HTML, you're going to need to use these brackets to tell the coding what the sets are. Hi, Amy. How are you? Welcome. Oh, sorry, you're muted. Sorry.
I'm good. How are you? Thanks.
Good. Yeah.
I'm just popping in to say hello to everybody. I'm one of
Hello.
your academic program managers from Massachusetts. I'm just going to put a little info in the chat. for people who you might want to reach out to if you have any questions on academics.
Perfect.
But everything going well so far?
Mhm.
I think they're excited for coding. Yeah.
Oh, that's so hard. I could never do it.
Oh, you could.
You can stay in the class. Yeah, we can learn it.
All right. Well, have a great term, you guys. Again, keep me and Elliot's information. Our emails are right in the chat now. We are here for all of your academic support.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, have a great time. Bye,
All right,
guys.
good one. Bye.
I got the text, the practice text, but I didn't got the Chrome symbol and all of that.
Sure. So you have the practice txt file.
I think
see.
so, yeah.
So like this one, is it looking a bit like this for you?
Yes, exactly.
Great. So what's happening here is that this isn't technically a HTML document yet. So what you want to do is if you open up your practice file, where opening into Notepad, you can go to File and Save As. And after you have the Save As, what you're going to do is in the file name description, you're going to manually add in this .html file, like so.
Okay.
And then you're going to change the save as type to an all files there.
Okay.
I might also be able to, maybe I can just sort of make it easier for us. You really only need to do this the one time because then you can just copy it. Let me. We do that. So I uploaded the HTML file in the chat as well. But either way, it should work for you. Cool.
Oh, okay, got it.
Nice. So this is a bit larger. So our H1 is this heading tag. And someone brought up a good point is like, why do I always need to put in these guys here? What happens if I just kind of remove them from each other? This guy. We'll see here that it's actually going ahead and it's showing it on the screen normally, but it's not showing the type of definition that we want. So essentially, whenever you're making HTML code, you're always going to want to surround it with these tags. And we'll look at the tags later because there's also going to be attributes with these guys. But for the time being, we can add in the tags. And for our code, the interesting thing as well is that there's going to be multiple headings that we can work with. And each heading, let me do like a test of heading 2, is going to be denoted by a H2 instead. So again, general idea is that for every opening tag that you have, you need a same closing tag. And that kind of tells your code like what it's supposed to be building for us. You can see here now that I have my hello world and then testing 2 underneath it. We just open this with Microsoft Edge. There we go.
When everything that is inside the brackets is going to be published as is written.
Perfect. So everything inside
Even
these brackets
spaces?
here, yeah, even the space. So if I let's actually try that out here. If I put a few bits of space here, I run this guy, we'll see here that it's actually not showing up the space right away. So what you could do here, and this is where later when we look at our CSS and styling, this will be something that will happen. But another type of tag that we could use here, I believe it's called a BR. So this is called a break line tag. And if you open up this guy, you'll notice that it's actually giving me an extra bit of space between the two there. For the time being, though, don't worry too much about the spacing. Just kind of jumping ahead a little bit. For the time being, as long as you're understanding that you could put the text in between there, spacing is a bit of a different issue. But any punctuation and any symbols that you put into here, it will show up on there for us. And if your code isn't doing, like if you made a mistake, let me say I put in like gibberish like this, my opening tag and my closing tag, what will actually happen here? So it will actually go ahead. It won't like shut down your code or anything. It will actually just make it say plain text like, okay, well, this is what this is saying there. So it's a little HTML can be a little hard to code because usually when you're coding, it will give you error messages and everything. In this scenario, though, it will run, but it won't be what we expect. So again, these heading tags, you can kind of, I'll just do one more for us. They go up until heading 7, I believe, or heading 6 or 7. So you can really kind of experiment what they're doing. And you'll notice here that they're getting kind of shorter as we go down there. And that's what the headings are. Now, this is a very basic website. How do we actually see where this is going on? Let's go ahead and go to our, let me see here. Let me go to, see if this guy pops up. We go to the main page of our institution here. Cool thing about this one is that if you, on any website that you're working with, if you right click on it and you go to inspect down here, I'm on Chrome, but it's the same for other ones. You'll actually see right away that we're using HTML inside of here. So if I scroll down to our body, which is where most of it will work, does everyone see kind of, it might be a bit small, but does everyone see these small brackets with the header? So this is actually what is built up inside. I mean, it's a very intense website, so we won't be doing anything as intense as this right off the bat. But you could see here that we have our opening tags and then the closing ones as well, and they contain information in there. So whenever we're doing web development, this is what will be like occurring on the end of it if we have a website working. Cool. Now to jump back, so this is a very basic web page, and again, whenever we have an element in our, I call them the tags there, but essentially they're going to be called an element. So right now in our example, we have 3 HTML elements, H1, H2, and H3. And what we could say now next is if we're actually trying to get more advanced with this, we can kind of add a bit more information to our web pages. So if you're ever making a basic web page, there's going to be 3 important things that you're going to need to remember. The first one is you're going to kind of denote the entire piece of text that you're working with as a HTML document. And the way that we do that is by typing in something that says exclamation doc type. And after we type in exclamation doc type, you can see it up here as well. We're going to give it this element tag of HTML. Now this is unique, and this is the only instance of this where this will occur. It's like doc type thing. Essentially, because what we'll be doing later is working with CSS and JavaScript and HTML, this tells us that it's a doc type of HTML. After we do that, let's just say that we want to kind of experiment more. You might notice up here that my practice.html isn't that good of a title for my website I'm trying to build here. So there's actually going to be 2 portions of your code that you'll be making. It's a little bit smaller for us because I'm adding more. The first part of your HTML document will be the head, which is where information is kind of stored that the user doesn't see. And the second part will be your body. Okay. So I just added quite a bit of code into our HTML document here, but essentially this part up here is going to be the same for whichever HTML file you're making. This head part tells us, hey, I want information that the user won't really see on like the web page, but is important. And then the body is where you're going to be coding most of your information, like hello, this is my website and everything.
Does capital letters change meaning?
For doc tape or
yeah.
So this is like built into W3, which is like, we'll look at W3 in a moment here. This is kind of built in. If we do it this way, it won't break our code necessarily, but essentially if you're working with the internet expects it to be capital doc type. So I would just leave them as capital. It won't, I don't know if it will break it or anything, but in general, that's just kind of like, hey, this is a HTML document that you're viewing right now. That's what that is saying. Now,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't mind, just
Sure.
Another question.
Yeah.
To make things simple to visualize. If I have the notepad open, the HTML document, right?
Yeah.
I'm editing the HTML. As soon as I save, will the web page also update automatically, or have to hit refresh?
Perfect. So let's try to do that here. I'm using Microsoft Edge, and we'll see here that unfortunately it looks like I'm going to have to hit refresh here to do it, to reload it. Later on, when we sync up to more advanced tools, what we'll have to do, you might be able to get a server that kind of updates it for you. I'll show us how to do that later. But for the time being, you can just you can keep this open, and then you can press Control R on Windows to refresh, or hit it up there as well. It won't do it automatically for us. But we might be able to use tools online to help with that.
Okay, just wondering. Thank you.
Sorry,
Yeah.
it's just like typing in the H1 and the hello world, because I did that and like nothing happened. So I don't know if I did something wrong, like
Sure.
just showing up in the HTML.
Is it not showing up on your HTML
Yeah.
screen? Do you, Agnes, would you mind sharing your screen and we can take a look?
Yeah.
Right there. Nice. So this guy. Okay, so I think all that's happening here, Agnes, is that this is actually still that TXT file. So what I would do is I would copy that code that you made there. Let's just do like a right-click and copy of it.
Mhm.
Nice. And then if you could right-click on practice.html, so you can exit out of this TXT file.
Okay.
And let's right-click on practice.html.
Here?
Not that one. Let's go to the one above it. Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, that guy. Let's right-click him. And let's go to open with. And let's do, can you go to choose another app down there?
Which one? The
One more down, underneath search the Microsoft Store. There we go. One more down. Oh, oh, no worries. It's fine. So if you go in, right click that practice.html again.
Yeah.
And then that open with, and then the guy underneath it. So choose another app. If you scroll down in this list that pops up, there should be one that says, yeah, let's hit more apps. And let's scroll down to, there should be a no, oh, do you see notepad right there? Let's click on that notepad and let's hit okay. And now, Agnes, when this one opens, do you see how the practice.html is at the start up there instead of .txt? So this one's the HTML file. So you can paste that in there. Let's paste the code you had. Let's save this one. And now let's, perfect. And now let's double click that practice.html. See here.
Oh, okay.
Nice. Now it's working for you. So you can keep this open and refresh it while you're editing that TXT file. And honestly, Agnes, because that other one might be a bit confusing, you can just delete that practice.txt. Yeah, let's delete it, and then you could just keep that practice there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Great work. Putin, great question. So what does the doc type HTML show? Again, that's for the time being, because when we look at other examples, it will say it. But our code will actually run without this, which is a bit confusing.
I was not able as well to get the HTML.
Oh, the HTML file to show up for you?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Do you want to share your screen, Isabel, and I could catch you up here?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. So we have the practice there. Yeah, let's go ahead. I guess the Mac might be a little bit different. So it's a real TXT file. Okay, so let's go ahead and can you control click on practice? Let's see your oh,
Here?
okay. Let's actually open with, so you could open it with Google. Would you be able to, Isabella, in that practice.rtf file that you have open over there? Let me see. Oh, sorry, let me pull up my annotation here.
Yeah, it's RTF, and how can I change that?
Yeah, so I think all we need to do here is if you click, yeah, let's click on this guy. Oh, sorry, let's click on that RTF file. I think it's back here.
Where?
Do you see where I'm highlighting with my blue? If you can click there with your mouse.
No, I'm not finding it.
Oh, does it not see it? Okay. Let's.
I see it. I see. If you make a
Yes.
circle, maybe it's easier
Sure.
to see.
Is that? Do you see the circle?
Okay.
This guy over here.
Um,
So if you just click on that this file right here with your cursor. So over here. So just up a little bit. Perfect. Click there.
mhm.
And now if you could go ahead and let's go up to file. So at the top left, do you see it says the file? Let's go to, is there a save? Let's see here, save. Can you click save? Will that just, is there a save as?
It's just save, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Is that would it be the revert to?
Yeah, let's try revert across all versions. Huh. Apple.
Wow.
No, I think these are the ones I've tried to
Sure.
do, but it's only 2 in the
Let me look
end.
up one thing first real quick.
Mhm.
Let's see here. Okay, let's go ahead and would you be able to exit out of this one, Isabella? Let's close out this. Let's go into the web development folder that you made. Yeah, that one with practice. Let's go ahead and open up practice. This will be good for other folks that. There we go. And let's go ahead and let's copy that code that you made in the RTF into this one here. Let's copy all that. Nice. Now what we could do here is let's go to File. Recent. There should be. If you hit save, does it allow you to save it as? So that's only doing that one. Practice. In the name, actually, can you bring up that name one more time of practice? And can you put a .html after the E? No. Okay. Now
I've
let's.
tried,
Is
but
that? Oh, and so now it
this
saves
is
it
what
as.
happened.
Okay, let's
Mhm.
see here. Text edit menu bar. Let's see here. Could you go to edits? Okay, and let's see. Sorry, but I'm trying to.
Edit? Mhm.
Yeah. Let's see. Can you hover over text edit as well instead of just regular edit? To the left, one more to the left of file, and then one more over. How do we save? See here. New.
Open and save on the top, maybe.
Yeah.
Document type HTML 4.01 stripped.
Yeah. Let's. Would you be able to?
It was like this, and then I click here, right?
Yeah. Let's click there, and then let's unclick or uncheck that add.txt. Okay, and now let's go ahead and see if this guy will open for us. So let's exit out of this one. Save that one. Why there's no save as?
Oh.
Mhm.
Cut. Oh,
Huh.
usage. Did that do it?
Yay.
There we go.
It worked.
There we go. Okay. All right. Okay, so we're
Okay.
getting something. Okay.
Good.
So now we can go ahead and go from there then. Great work. Right.
By the way, I put to rename, and when rename it saves the red like
It's it.
that.
Perfect. Okay, great.
Just
Okay.
after change the click we've done. Yeah, the setting.
Awesome. Okay, so I'll Max always make it a bit more complicated for us. No worries. I'll need to bring up my Mac as well just to double check them because I do know there might be a better program than TextEdit for it. Cool.
Max
Okay.
should be user friendly, but not developer friendly.
Yeah. That's a great point. Awesome. Puntini, as you asked earlier with the doc type HTML, right now we can kind of ignore what it's doing, but essentially if you upload something to the internet, it's going to check for the doc type there. So there's two main portions of your code. There's going to be the head, which keeps track of your scripts and your kind of extra information. One thing that it will also keep track of is your title. So if I put in a piece of code that says open title and close title, and I'm going to call this, let's call it like my website or something. What I could do here is if I save this file and over here we see practice.html, if I refresh it, we'll see that it's actually calling the tab menu my title, or excuse me, my website. So this title tag, or excuse me, this title element is going to be working with this guy up here. And this is kind of what the difference is with the head and the body. Everything that's up here, like in your upper tab, and everything that the user doesn't really see right away in the web page is saved in the head. The body is where most of the code will live, but it just showcases like paragraphs and text and everything. Again, though, every element is exact same with an open element and then a closing element as well. Okay. Are folks able to get that website, or excuse me, get the tab menu changed?
The closing on the HTML is because we had the head, or because we have the doc type HTML?
Perfect. So this, you can kind of consider it like this as well, Sullivan. Great point. This is an opening tag, and then this is a closing tag of the same one. But essentially, we have this closing HTML tag down here because we opened it up here at the start.
I just, I have something in front of the thing. That's why I couldn't see it.
That's, oh, sure.
Because we open on the doc type, right?
Yes, exactly. We the doc type up here that will tell us to close it down here. So again, whenever you have an open element, you need to make sure you close it as well. What happens if we don't really close items? Let me delete this one. Sometimes it might work for us as well. Let's see if I can get an error. See, now we're getting kind of weird behavior if we do it this way. So the reason we want to make sure that we're not forgetting to close the brackets is due to this, just to make sure that it's working okay. Awesome.
Can you repeat again for what is the doc type?
Sure. So doc type HTML tells the internet if you upload this to the internet, it tells websites and web crawlers that this is a HTML document. So it's going to inform the internet. I say the internet like it's a person, like just like crawlers on there, that it's like this is a HTML document. Expect HTML code. Again, we actually, it's kind of, when we're just starting, it's kind of confusing why we're using it, because our code will technically run just fine without it. But because we want to eventually upload to the web, we're just going to learn it now to just make sure that this is included.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think if let me do one more thing here. If you like do that inspect element again, see if I could do it. This is a web page I found. We'll see up here. Does everyone see on this web page I found? Doc type HTML at the very top. So every website has that on there. It's just telling us that it's a HTML document. Cool. Okay, so I lost that. Yep. Oh, I guess I should read the PowerPoint there. The doc type is an instruction. And again, your HTML head and body are going to be the basis of any web page. There's a little bit more here. We didn't use it just yet. If you're, let's just say that you're coding or you're trying to make a website for either a Spanish website, or maybe a Polish website or anything, you can actually change the language of what is expected here. EN is English. That's probably the most default one that you'll use. But again, you can change this around to focus on other languages that you might be making. For the time being, EN or Leave
But
the link.
what does that change? It change like
Just like locality, and if have you ever been to a website where it says like, would you like to translate this? Have you ever seen that?
uh-huh.
That's what
Yeah.
that does. So you can like shift to a different document if it says like Spanish or anything. So you could have different versions of the same document. You would just change the local language for us.
Right, but that's essentially it's me calling this document English.
Yeah, essentially, it's like this document has English language in it. That's what that's saying. And the
Right,
language,
but I could call it Apple, for example, instead of en.
yeah, you could go. I believe. Let me see here. I think on the W3 forums, we'll look at them later, but there should be codes for each of these. En, if you change your language up there, I think Spanish has a unique one, and like other ones as well have a unique one
Mhm.
for it. Again, that's just like
Yeah, we'll get that. We'll get to that later. I
yeah, we'll
assume.
get this. But again, this portion right up here is instructions for the rest of the website there. Cool. Nice. There's some more information here, this meta condition. For the time being, for your first project as well, I kind of want to focus on the body of what's going on here, because for your first one, you're kind of making a mock-up HTML like we're doing right now. But again, information like the meta name, we can add it here. If you ever see this word called meta, you might have seen it more with like the metaverse that Zuckerberg's making everything. Meta, essentially, what this tells us is, again, this is all instructions to the website to tell you who the author is. So in our scenario, if we're working with meta information, we could say something like name is equal to John or something like that. And what that will tell us, you could say name there. That might tell us the author information or everything as well. There's some information, and where the meta occurs is if I go ahead, when you're on Google and you're looking through things, this description right here is meta HTML. That's what this meta section is. So it's just basic information about what's popping up here. Again, for your first project, you don't need to worry too much about the information here. It's just good to get to know what that's doing. Nice. Cool. So the title element is straightforward enough. We have that one. We can come back to the meta one here. What I want to look at a bit here are these concepts of attributes. And Sullivan brought up a good point. Right here at far will be French. So that's language in French for this one. But what really is an attribute? Essentially, let's see here. If we have any void elements, such as this one here, where there's no end tags, we're given information to them using attributes. And attributes are essentially stylistic decisions that we can add on to our tags. And we could take a look, these void and meta tags you can come back to. But for example, this void element is something that kind of breaks the rules that we're working with. So ignoring kind of the meta ideas, what's one void element that we might see a lot is this type of, you can put these anywhere really. Oops. I'm going to call this void code HR. And if I refresh it, oops. Let me actually delete the meta. That meta was incorrect. Sorry about that. If I delete that there, we'll notice that we get a pretty solid single line across the top of my code here. And what this is do for us, essentially what this does, if I put it down there too, these are void because they don't have an opening and end tag. I did one earlier, but as a pop quiz, does anyone remember another void tag that I might have used a bit earlier? I got rid of it there. No, okay, no worries. So if you see here, there was one that was called BR, and BR essentially does a break in your code. So if you want to make like, if you want to keep everything on the same line, but you want to do a line break, that's what the BR. Oh, Felipe, nice, great work, Felipe. So we saw the BR earlier, and what this does is does a break in our code. These are called void because they don't have an end tag in them. They're just there, kind of existing. HR Central horizontal line. You'll notice as well, the good thing about HTML is that it's very like H1 is heading 1, like they kind of make sense for the most part. And here is where we're going to get into some of the more elements that aren't void, but can also get attributes a part of them too. So biggest ones, such as P and div, are things that we're going to see quite a bit. Your P element is going to be a container that renders a paragraph. This is going to be enclosed text to have blank lines above and below it. And then we can see here, there's this little description of a style requirement. So if its enclosed text is greater than one line, then put the P tags on separate lines and indent to close text. So what this means here is that, let's just go ahead. I'll leave that HR there. I can make a P tag like so. And if I'm doing something like, hello, this is a test paragraph, close it like so. We'll see here that what this does for us is it creates a kind of nice, get rid of this one, fix up a little bit. It creates a pretty nice space between the top and bottom one there. Now, will our code run if I get rid of this P element? It does, and it looks like it kind of defaults it to be like that. But in general, if you're creating paragraphs of text, you're going to want to make sure that they're enclosed there. That style requirement essentially says that if you have a very long paragraph that you want to have text a part of, what you could do here is, let me kind of do an example of this. I'm going to type a bit fast. And again, you just kind of type gibberish here if you'd like. What you could do is something like this, where you have the two P tags on separate lines, and then you have the text information between them. Now, an issue here, though, is that let's just say that I want to start after my exclamation point, this guy to go down into the next line. This is where those void elements come into play really well. So you can actually, inside of your paragraph, just type in a BR, like so, and we'll see up here that it changes my paragraph kind of programmatically there. So it's very easy to kind of make some looking, let's see here. Let me put a comma right here. Oops. Do a comma. I could do a BR. This allows us to write a paragraph that has multiple lines and separators. So for your first, we'll look at the first project after we're done like going through these ideas here. But essentially, you're going to be asked to kind of write up this information about something you're kind of interested in, which will probably assume a lot of paragraphs. So the BR is a good way to kind of split that into readable pieces of text. Nice. Let me make this. So, does anyone have any questions so far about layout of opening tags and closing ones, and the void tags and everything? It's good.
If I don't close the P
Yep.
void,
Sure.
it just stays open?
Oh, that was actually my fault. I forgot that one in there. There's good catch to solve it. So essentially, my code again, when we're running our code here, sometimes HTML gives us undefined behavior that will work for us. Let's just say here. So even though I didn't close this tag here, it does seem to be working okay. But what will happen is that later on, when we're kind of working with CSS and other style sheets in JavaScript, it will throw errors for us and it will give us weird behavior. So as I said earlier, HTML is a bit harder to grasp because it runs properly even if it's not fully correct. And where this comes into play later on is that WTree has a HTML checker for us that will check if your code is like properly formatted and everything. For the time being, though, even if it is working, make sure that every opening tag of your tag, unless it's a void tag, has a subsequent closing one. The P might work for us here without one, but most of the time you want to make sure, as it's given here, that it's closed as well. Cool. So one more thing is this concept of a div, and divs are going to be something that are very important down the line when we get into these attributes a part of them. So we'll do one more with a div, and a div essentially is a generic container that represents a group of related text. So what I'm going to do is I have this, I'm actually going to copy this into our Zoom chat here. So if you just want to grab up that code from there, you can type in your own one as well. But underneath my paragraph, I'm going to create this thing called div, div, and I'm going to open it and then also close it after I type in the temperature. So you see? So a div could be considered, you can call it a division or a divider, but it groups related things. So if you have pieces of text that are similar to each other, you want to put them in a div. If you have on your website related items, you want to put them in a div. And you might have seen this already. What is most of the things on this website composed of when we take a look at it? Looks like we have a div over here, and it looks like we have a div ID. We have these different IDs and everything, but a div is going to be the main container that we use for lots of items. So the headers are straightforward. Usually you'll only use one or two in your website, but after that, the paragraphs and the divs are going to be used quite a bit as well. You'll notice, though, that the div actually doesn't contain anything really different, and we could also do something where we go like this, where I'll say, okay, this is a div of paragraph, like so. Doesn't really change much on this end, but again, this is what we'll be doing for divs. So you'll notice here, where is it?
Question: is there a way to tabulate the paragraphs on the notepad with like a command?
Yeah, let me. So the reason Notepad is actually kind of old school with how we're doing it. Let me see here. Let me see.
Just to make things more organized.
Let's see here. So TextPad, or excuse me, the Notepad won't do it for us here. But after we do a few more of these, I'll show us some more programs that kind of do it for us. You might have Notepad++. If you look up Notepad++ on your computer, that's a bit more advanced, and that can do the auto tabs for us. For the time being, we'll just use this, but then I'll show us Visual Studio Code is another one that is really helpful with its commands there. Notepad's a bit old school, but it's good to get started with it. Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, whereas, nice. So the following thing is this kind of preview that I want to showcase to us. You won't be required to use it all the time in your homework, but again, you know, if you kind of if you're going out into the world and freelancing and for web design, and you can only really do the tags, you can try to make it work, but your websites won't be the most interesting, right? It's only black text and fonts, and we can't really design anything new. This is where our cascading style sheets come into play here. So CSS or cascading style sheets are items that essentially build into our, items that build into our header area that create specific attributes of our code. So the first one that I'm going to do here, and there's two ways that we can do this, and I'll show us both of them, is inside of your header. Remember, the header contains information that the user doesn't really see. I'm going to create another opening tag that is called style, and then I'm going to close it as well. So let's just make sure everyone has this one. I'm going to put this underneath my title. And what I'm going to do now with my style sheet here is your style sheet essentially takes in two options. It takes in the specific the specific element that you're working with, and then it's going to want to take in these two curly brackets after it. So we'll have an open one and a closed one. And again, when we get to later coursework, we're actually going to have a dedicated style sheet to do this for us. For the time being, this is called inline style sheets. And what I'm going to say here is I'm going to provide a property. This one is called text align. what I'm going to do is call this one to be center. So this is just an example. And again, we just started learning this today. So if all these are new, that's fine. You'll learn them as you go along. Does everyone see how my hello world is now centered on my screen? This is what styling is. So you style your sheet in a certain way. Now, why do we have this semicolon here? And what's this colon do? A style sheet contains an attribute that says what do you want, what attribute do you want to change, and how do you want to change it? That's what these two do. So let's try to see if I can, off the top of my head, remember. Let me see if I can make my color red of my header. Nice. Now I have a red header of my code. And what does this semicolon do? It pretty much tells our HTML to say, hey, add in another consistent theme of this. Now, why do we want to use
we need the semicolon in the end, whatever we finish.
So let's see. Let's try to get rid of this one. Do you see what happens to yourself if I got rid of my semicolon? It actually got rid of. Oh, sorry. Let me. If I remove this, sure, no worries.
Yeah, I was talking about the one after red.
After red, yeah. So if we actually remove this guy, no, that one will still work because at the end. But it's good practice just to keep it in there in case you want to add more to it after. Right?
Okay.
But that's kind of like a comma in a list of items. All
right.
I believe. So what I want to show all of us now as well. It's on the notes there. Let me see if I can. Here we go. So, in case you really want to get creative, I'll link this into the chat. So this is a library of every possible attribute that's there. So there's tons of them. And you won't be quizzed on like remembering all of them, but let's just say, for instance, okay, I want to change the background color. This is called W3 Schools, and W3 Schools is essentially the HTML like reference place. This is what most things are based off of. And if you click on it, you'll notice that you actually get a pretty neat example of how to use it as well. And while you're on this page, if you hit try it yourself, it will actually bring you to, I guess we could just use this as well instead of Notepad. It will actually bring you to this type of dynamic creator of HTML code. You'll notice here inside of this example page, it has doc-type HTML already and HTML. But if you want to, you're more than welcome to use this try it yourself idea if you want to code this way instead of having to use the Notepad there. What I'll do here for us though is let's just try to continue with our Notepad example. I have my H1 built up and I have my color of red. What I can do next is background color. Make this full screen. What I'm going to call it, I think one was called Coral. If I call it Coral, then I refresh this guy. We'll see here that I have the full width of my header one. Now a different color that's there. Cool. Now, why is this important? And remember that we did divs down here before. Well, we were changing our H1 item. We can also change our div like so. I'm going to add in a div and I'm going to make the background color of my div blue. Does everyone see how now this is entirely a blue divider? So whatever I add into my div down here.
I'm sorry, the div part, what is exactly for? I didn't get that very well. The div, like what does it do?
Sure. So the div right now isn't that useful for us, but essentially a div is a way to group. Where is it there? It's going to group pieces of text together. So you can call it kind of like, it's like a container. So let's just say that like you have, what's a good example? Maybe you're making a web page that has like a cooking recipe, and then you have a part that's like a prep, how to do it, and then like a timing section. each tree of those separate parts could be its own div in case you want to style the sections differently, have a little bit of like text different. It's just an easier way to group things because like with our small pieces of text, we're not grouping a lot, but if you're doing a lot of work in there, it's good to have a way to group things together. And the main thing is that why a div is important is actually what we're doing now. You can style different divs differently, and then that will give you a different style as well. So what we could do here, let me see if font color might be one as well. So I'm kind of guessing it's because there's so many of them. I kind of forgot. Let's just see. So this guy won't work for us right now. Eventually, when we get to later divs there, we will be able to style them a bit more. What I'll do for one more of us is I'm going to do P is equal to, let's try to change the font color to white. Let's see here. Oh, let's see. Let me look at our. I think it should be color.
Does it matter if I'm, for example, if I'm changing the body color, the background of the whole body, right? Does it need to be under the body section or could be outside the body section? Because we initiate H1 outside the head, right?
Yes. So oh, that's a great point. How do you change, where do you want to change the body color essentially? So what you could do up here is if we're using the style sheet, you could actually let's try to do it this way. I can change the background color to, maybe we could try this as green. And now we have a fully green website here. Now, you may have noticed that this is like really old school looking and like the colors are kind of archaic. So you can also go ahead and if you don't like, let's see if we can do this on the fly here. I typed into Google something called color picker. And let me try to choose like a nice like goldenish color. You'll notice here that this one's okay. When I do color picker, I'll have a hex. And if I copy this, instead of just doing green, I can try to do the hex color that that is. So let's see if this works for us. And now we'll see here that I have a custom hex color that I made that created that there.
See.
So does that help Sullivan with the body?
Great. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. One more thing that I haven't shown us too much of yet is, oh yeah, question.
It's Isabella with the iOS again.
Oh, is it giving you another issue?
Yeah, it's every time I save, it returns to the RTF, and it sounds this.
Let's see here. Do you know what it's about for let's see here. Just so that's
when it's here we've changed. Every time it's save again, like I update.
It changes it back to the.
It changed to RTF, yeah.
Let's is it for the time being? I sent you a link into the Zoom chat. Could you just copy and paste your HTML code onto that website? What it is it's this one, which is like the W3 Schools runner. You can run it in your browser. You'll see here that it kind of does the same thing for me. And I'll look into why that Mac is giving an issue during the break because that's frustrating. So you can why don't you for the time being as well just copy over the code into this W3 Schools creator and then click run on it and then that should automatically run it too. If other folks want to do that as well instead of using the notepad, that's fine. I just wanted to showcase how you could use it that way.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Nice. Great point there. If you just want to change the font color, you can just use color. Oh, was it color? Let me see here. Oh, great work. Thanks for the great. So again, color is actually going to be instead of font dash color will change to regular color. One more thing though is let's just say we'll see here that in my div, right here, I had this background color of blue, and let's just say that as as we pointed out earlier with that example of making a restaurant that or a recipe page, tab these guys in here. If I want these two sections to have different colors, right? Let me change this to color for the time being. We'll see here, let's just say I want the second guy to be blue, but I want this guy to be white. I want him to be blue as well, or maybe I want him to be orange. What you can do is what we like to refer to as inline styling. And the way we do that is we type out the keyword style. And after we type out, and this is, so right now, this is my element div. What I'm going to do right now is called placing an attribute to my element. And when I place an attribute to my element, what I essentially do here is inside of my code, I can pretty much create, oops, AZ, with these quotation marks right here, my own type of code there. So now what happens here is that this style overrides the style that was given over here because it's like a priority type of deal. So right now my code runs and it says, okay, I'm going to change every div's color to blue. But if I use inline styling here, my code is going to say, you know what? This guy actually wants it to be orange at the end. So I'm going to change it there. Now, what can you do this with? You can do this with literally any tag that you want to. So a good practice to do is that you can do a style sheet at the top for everything in general, and then you can use inline styling with the keyword style to do more specific scenarios. And let me get I guess I can make this one green.
So what you're saying is that whenever you create the div, you're creating like, okay, this is gonna be everything that is inside the div. I'm gonna do whatever I want with this part, and that's gonna be priority compared to the rest of it.
Perfect, right? So essentially what our code will be doing is up here, we say every div in my body has to have the color blue. That's what this code is saying. And then when we run our code, the parser is going to say every div has the color blue. So technically this is blue, but then it also reads the style. And then it says, wait a minute, this actually takes priority over this command up here because it's the most recent command. So what it says now is saying style is equal to color green. Okay, this specific div style is going to be green. And now, oh, that was my fault again. I need to get better at that. So the reason that we have the end tags is for this reason, is so now only this div is the color green. If we refresh it there, see how it's green? And the rest of our divs, whatever is inside of there, will be blue there. This one might, let me make this a H4. Let's just see what this does for us. Cool. And now our heading 4 is blue as well. Okay. Now, does this only work at the outside? What if I want my heading 4 to not be blue as well? What I could say again is heading 4 is style, color is orange. Now that guy's orange as well. So you can get very complicated with this. It can get a bit convoluted as well if you're doing it quite a bit. But in general, what you would like to do is that style is great for how you want the general layout of your website to look. And if you want to have it a bit more unique in some areas, you can use this inline style command. So that's called inline, and this is called your style cascading sheet.
Why did you use quotes on the style and you didn't on?
Great point. Let's see. Let's actually see what happens in our code if this guy doesn't do it. So it might work for us per normal. Let's see here. Usually, that's just kind of how we you do it if you do inline styling. That's just kind of the appropriate way of doing it, because what happens in Notepad, it's hard to showcase it, but when I show us Visual Studio as CSS item here, see here, this guy as well, it kind of color codes it for us. So what that will do for us is, you see how now this is kind of blue inside of here? So what we would like to do is something like this. If you'll see here, it still kind of uses the quotes as well. We might be able to get away with it, but usually if you look at examples at W3 and W3 schools, it's going to have the quotes around it. So it's just kind of, it's just kind of the nomenclature of like how to do it. Like we just learned how to do it. But again, if you don't, I guess it could work without the quotes too, huh? One thing to note though, is that if you are adding multiple of these, that might be why. Okay, I think I just figured it out. So essentially here, let me get another style. Text align of center. So let's just say, Sullivan, that I want my color to be orange, and I want my text align to be center. We'll notice here that nothing is really working on my end. So if I go ahead and I surround this guy with quotes, now I can have multiple style decisions made into the one section there. So your quotes kind of contain it there.
Okay.
Up here though, the CSS doesn't care about the quotes because that's dedicated to cascading its style.
And that means dedicated to the cascade style, it means that it's controlling the entire page.
Entire page, perfect. So this controls everything of your page. It controls everything beneath it there. So in general, the idea is that if you want every single piece of text on your page to be white, like I have it here, we could say P color is white. And we'll see here that this guy turns white, but this orange one doesn't turn white because what did I do here? I changed it to orange here. But if I remove that, now he's white as well. What's happening?
Okay.
I might actually, this one's easier to notepad, so I might use it too for it. But again, everyone, the cool thing about this is that you can build up your websites and your HTML files in any way that you'd like to. You don't necessarily need to use a notepad. It's just a neat way to go about it there. Awesome.
Okay.
Cool. And let me see here. So the last thing here that I kind of want to showcase to us, and I'll there's two things here. There's this thing called Validator, w3.org. You can use a website, or I believe you can actually upload direct input here. And I'll showcase this to us. If I go ahead and I check my code here, you'll see here that we actually get a lot of warnings that say, like, consider adding a language attribute to HTML. And this essentially tells you, based on like the worldwide association of what websites should look like, what some recommendations are. Let's go ahead and let's see if I can change, if I delete the text align or the quote from style down here, and I check it. Looks like we didn't get a warning too much, but it will pretty much say if you're getting errors. Let's say I got rid of a P tag, which should tell us that the P tag is missing as well. Oh, looks like it's not doing it for us. Essentially, if you're encountering errors, it's good to use this parser to double check them. The last thing I want to show to us as well, I showed it already, is this w3.org. I'm actually going to add it onto the main page of our AD110. But this pretty much is like your go-to information about anything with HTML. So introduction to infrastructure. Again, I don't want to just send you guys out to this with like tons of information because it is out there. But you can, if you're ever stuck with something, and usually, as I was saying earlier, it's like sometimes we work on our own. All of us are going to want to build our websites a bit of a different way with different features. So we're going to encounter different issues because of that. So just make sure you have this some reference, and I'll add it on the main page there too. Cool. And so quiz there. W3 essentially means the World Wide Web, W3 times, and that's where this comes from. I won't go over the history because I don't want to put anyone to sleep, but essentially it's been around since the 90s. I think it started with ARPA back in like the 40s for stuff with World War II as well. So cool. Awesome. So it is around it's 6:55 your guys' time. So we could take our hour break until 8 or so your guys' time, and when we come back, I'm going to